The Russia-Ukraine war may have just crossed a dangerous line. It's something that the world feared all along. Moscow is accusing Kyiv of striking at the very heart of Russian power, the residence of the Russian president, warning that the response has already been decided. Now, this alleged attack has ignited outrage. It's rattled world capitals, invited angry reactions, threatening to also derail the fragile peace efforts that appear to be finally beginning to take shape. Ukraine is calling the entire incident fiction, while Russia is calling it terrorism. And as the rhetoric sharpens, the risk of escalation is growing even further. Russia says Ukraine launched a wave of drones at one of Putin's official homes in the Novgorod region. The foreign minister of Russia claiming Russian air defenses intercepted 91 drones aimed towards Putin's residence. That's the number. In fact, also saying that Moscow has now already decided when and where it will strike back. Kyiv, on the other hand, calls the claim a staged narrative meant to sabotage diplomacy. Zelensky called it, quote-unquote, a complete fabrication intended to justify additional attacks against Ukraine. But remember what Zelensky said just last week? During his Christmas Eve address, without actually naming Putin, Zelensky said, "May he perish," quote-unquote. Let's just play out that statement for you.
Today we all share one dream, and we make one wish together. May he perish. Each of us may think privately. But when we turn to God, of course, we ask for more. We ask for peace for Ukraine. We fight for it, and we pray for it.
The Kremlin saying US President Donald Trump reacted with shock and was outraged when he heard about the alleged strike during a call with Putin, further stating that Russia will now toughen its negotiating position, not abandon talks. The Kremlin spokesperson said, I'm quoting now, "This terrorist action is aimed at collapsing the negotiation process. The diplomatic consequence will be to toughen the negotiating position of the Russian Federation." So that's the big message coming in from Russia. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, a close ally of Putin, accused Zelensky of derailing settlement and seeking escalation. And the timing of this fallout also complicates a lot of things, because just days earlier, Trump said, remember, that a peace deal looked closer than ever after meeting Zelensky. Trump said he was informed about the alleged attack by the Russian president during a phone call. Here's what he said.
One thing to be offensive, because they were offensive. It's another thing to attack his house. It's not the right time to do any of that. And can't do it. And I learned about it from President Putin today. I was very angry about it.
And while the Indian Prime Minister, in a post on social media, said, and I'm quoting here, deeply concerned by reports of the targeting of the residence of the President of the Russian Federation, ongoing diplomatic efforts offer the most viable path towards ending hostilities and achieving peace. We urge all concerned to remain focused on these efforts and to avoid any actions that could undermine them. China also urged both sides to prevent any spillover and to avoid escalation, while the UAE strongly condemned the attempt to target Putin's residence. On the battlefield, meanwhile, the Russian Defense Ministry released video of the deployment of the nuclear-capable hypersonic Oreshnik missile system in Belarus, a significant development that also bolsters Moscow's ability to deliver missiles across Europe, make it faster for the Russian nuclear missiles to reach European targets in the event of a war. And all of this unfolding as negotiators continue to work on a US-drafted framework for a peace plan. Tonight, Russia's accusation and Putin's largest signal that he will expand his war aims, placing that progress in limbo, to say the least. And as the world reaction also hardens, hopes for a breakthrough appear bleak, at least at this point. The Arctic, once a frozen buffer, is fast becoming a whole new front line. China, which pretty much has no Arctic coastline, is rapidly expanding its presence across the high north. And the Chinese research submarines, for the first time, traveled thousands of feet beneath the Arctic ice this summer. Earlier, Chinese military and research vessels operated around Alaska's Arctic waters in unprecedented numbers. And just last year, Chinese and Russian military planes flew patrols near Alaska for the first time, with Chinese long-range bombers operating from a Russian airbase. So a lot has been happening. And in October, China sent a cargo ship to the Polish port of Gdansk by skirting the North Pole. The Arctic passage was 2 weeks faster than the traditional route via the Suez Canal. The Arctic route, accessible only a few months per year, was previously impassable for merchant vessels. Chinese officials saying they have plans to expand trans-Arctic cargo traffic with Russia, particularly imports of liquefied natural gas. And for China, the mastery of Arctic travel could yield valuable data about the natural resources awaiting below the melting ice caps. And China views future sea routes through the high north as a shortcut for global commerce. It will significantly reduce travel time for commercial shipping. Not just that, it will help Beijing position nuclear-armed submarines closer to potential targets, including the United States. And China has declared itself a near-Arctic power, an informal designation that Beijing hopes will place it alongside the US and Russia. China's foreign ministry, in fact, says its activities in the Arctic are reasonable and lawful, maintaining that it contributes to the maintenance and promotion of peace, stability, sustainable development in the region. Tensions over the high north, renewed by Russia's Ukraine war, are being amplified by China's reach. And until recently, the Arctic was dominated by the US, Russia, NATO allies, and now China's arrival, adding a whole new dimension, a powerful new player to an already tense region, where Russia is also expanding its military footprint. In fact, the US and NATO worry most about sea warfare. Washington and allies are training more Arctic troops in response to the new dangers, and they have beefed up sub-hunting patrols out of Iceland and other parts. President Trump struck a shipbuilding deal with Finland to expand the US icebreaker fleet, and it has pressured Denmark into expanding defenses in and around Greenland. China denies any military intent in the Arctic. Beijing insists that its activities are purely scientific and commercial. But the US says the warning signs are already frozen in the ice. Shifting focus now, China has escalated the military pressure on Taiwan. We've been telling you about this. It has launched a second straight day of large-scale war games now, including live-fire rocket strikes in waters surrounding the island. The PLA's Eastern Theater Command carried out long-range precision strikes to the north and south of Taiwan. It claims all designated targets were hit. Footage released by the Chinese military appears to show rocket launches over the Taiwan Strait as Coast Guard and naval vessels operated close to the island's shores. The drills were codenamed Justice Mission 2025. And they represent China's most extensive military exercises around Taiwan. Live-fire operations were announced across multiple zones, disrupting both air and sea traffic around the island until the evening hours. Taiwan, for that matter, has strongly condemned the exercises, calling them highly provocative and reckless. Taipei accuses Beijing of continuously undermining regional stability and the international order. It warns that the drills pose serious risks to security in the Taiwan Strait.
China has recently continued in the surrounding sea and airspace of the Indo-Pacific region, repeatedly through exercises as well as intrusions by military aircraft and warships, carrying out various military threats and gray zone harassment. Such actions fully demonstrate that China not only fails to uphold global and regional peace and stability.
And then reacting to the drills, local Taiwanese vendors also expressed concern as their baskets are running dry. Listen in to some of these reactions.
The intimidation effect isn't that strong for us. This isn't something new. They threaten all the time. China threatens any country it sees as a threat. With cross-strait tensions continuing to escalate, whether it involves live fire or not, we still have to trust our own defense capabilities. Beyond that, I believe Taiwan has many partners who would come to help us. This time, the message is clear. Apart from provocation, China wants to test where our bottom line is.
Now, the military posturing also comes against the backdrop of heightened tensions, of course, and the exercises started just 11 days after the US announced a record $11.1 billion arms package for Taiwan. That drew sharp anger from China. China, remember, views any foreign military support for Taiwan as interference in what it calls an internal affair. Regional powers are watching the developments very closely. South Korea, for that matter, has urged restraint, calling for cross-strait relations to develop peacefully through dialogue and cooperation. Seoul reiterated its long-standing position of supporting peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, even as it maintains formal diplomatic ties only with Beijing. China continues to claim Taiwan as part of its sovereign territory. It has never ruled out the use of force to bring the self-ruled island under its control. Taiwan, which is a vibrant democracy of more than 23 million people, rejects those claims and insists that its future must be decided by its own people. Can you try and guess your country will transform to what extent 2 decades later? Can you believe that someone actually predicted the e-commerce boom years in advance? Well, this panned out in the US 27 years ago. In 1998, when people still had landline phones and Bill Clinton was the president of America, Gallup conducted a telephonic survey of 1,055 Americans. They were asked about their predictions for what is likely to happen or not happen by 2025. Remarkably, many respondents got it spot on. As we're all set to bid goodbye to this year, let's just have a look at the survey results. 22 years before the world was overwhelmed by COVID-19, 75% of the respondents predicted the emergence of a deadly new disease. Can you believe this? Interestingly, 74% accurately gauged the evolving societal dynamics by envisaging that gay marriages will become commonplace in the US. What about the political predictions? They were a mixed bag. 69% got it right by forecasting that the US will get its first black president. The belief of 64% respondents that their country will elect a female president by 2025 remained a pipe dream. But a majority of the respondents were also realistic about what cannot be possible by 2025. Let's give you a sense of that now. Over 60% expressed faith that neither will space travel become common for Americans, nor will human beings make contact with aliens. So they got it right there. They also refused to buy the prospect that most people will be self-employed by now. The survey also indicated pessimism, with the majority of the respondents expecting life to get worse for the poor in America. A rather uncomfortable reality also came to the fore. 60% of respondents back then were satisfied with the state of affairs in the US as compared to 24% in the latest Gallup poll survey. So what does the future really have in store for your country? Hopefully the new year will bring in more answers. With roughly 267 million tobacco users, India is the world's second largest consumer. And now the country is all set to hike tobacco prices significantly higher. In the new year, the government is likely to notify the latest Central Excise Amendment Bill passed in the Parliament early this month. With the new law set to kick in, the retail prices of tobacco products are set to surge by 5 times across the country. The real question, though, is will the sky-high prices actually deter consumption, or will they actually push Indians to look for cheaper options, putting their health at risk even further? India generates substantial revenue from tobacco taxes, exceeding 70,000 to 76,000 crore rupees, or over $8 to $9 billion annually. So far, the revenue is in sharp contrast with the minimal funding for tobacco control programs. That highlights a major public health contradiction where massive tax income coexists with high tobacco-related deaths. But now the government is all set to reverse that trend. The Central Excise Amendment Bill clears the path for a hike in cigarettes, cigars, hookah, tobacco, chewing tobacco. Cigarettes that cost 18 rupees now could jump to 72 rupees per stick. Smoking mixtures will see the steepest jump, with excise rising 5-fold to 300% from 60% now. The tax on chewing tobacco, meanwhile, will reportedly increase to 100% from 25% currently. Hookah tobacco will attract 40% tax, up from 25%. Meanwhile, in Asia, India already has one of the highest taxes on tobacco products. The excise duty hike is in addition to the 40% GST on sin goods, which includes tobacco. The government's move shows its intention to use tax as a public health tool in a way, and to align with the WHO's recommendation. The price hike will have a significant impact on the country's finances. Tobacco marks a significant portion of the Indian government's indirect revenue. The centre's latest push comes after a broader, sweeping GST cut, which already lowered the tax revenues. The excise tax hike plan has shown mixed reactions on social platforms. Meanwhile, some welcome the government's move as a significant health measure, while others have questioned if it will actually deter smokers and tobacco users. But then the trends after the government notifies the excise bill and manufacturers hike prices will show the real impact. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.